Well, it is that time of year. The holidays are upon us. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. It's that time to be joyful, right? Where there's Christmas lights and singing and all sorts of celebrations, company parties, all the things. It's almost as if the season is demanding joyfulness, right? There's this expectation of it. But we all know, us in the helping profession, in the quiet spaces of our counseling offices, that a lot of people aren't feeling joyful at all, honestly. In fact, they feel really lonely. This season can bring up a lot of loneliness for people, where they feel unseen, disconnected, or really completely out of sync with the season. And I think the hard part about that is that so many of them carry that alone and silently because we're supposed to feel joyful. The world is celebrating, but so many people are quietly hurting right now. If you're new here, my name is Alyssa.
And I'm Monica.
And this is a hub for counselors, brought to you by CFT, the Center for Transformation. We train therapists, counselors, and spiritual leaders in the life model, a framework that integrates neuroscience with faith. And everything that we talk about on this podcast comes from that brain-based relational approach. And today, we're going to be jumping into the topic of loneliness during the holidays.
Yes, let's get to it.
I would say that one of the most powerful things that we could do, Monica, as therapists or people in the helping profession when it comes to this topic is to name loneliness, to be able to bring it to the surface, talk about it, and help normalize it for people so that we can really bring it to the forefront and help people work through it.
I agree, Alyssa. It's really a place for us as therapists to be empathic, to truly join people, and I'm sure that a lot of us as therapists can even relate to this concept of loneliness in the holidays.
Yes, absolutely. Right. This doesn't just mean clients in our office. It could be us as therapists too, that we're experiencing loneliness as well. And so I think it's important to talk about different types of loneliness that might come up for people because it looks different for everybody. But having an awareness around it and being able to spot it more easily with our clients and help them name and identify it, I think is a helpful thing. So I would say the first one that comes to mind for me is that this relational loneliness, right? I may be surrounded by family and friends. I may have people around me, but they may not be people that I feel really close or attuned to. Maybe there's some stuff going on in my relationship that the holidays just really tend to highlight and bring to the surface the fact that there's some areas of repair that need to happen. I don't feel as close to people as I would like to.
I see what you're saying, Alyssa. I think what you're really getting at is there's an additional type of loneliness. It's not just the people who really don't have a place to go, which I guess first and foremost, we want to identify that. There's places, there's plenty of people who family has passed away or they don't have a good relationship with family. They may not have a spouse or children themselves, or maybe everybody who, they're working with or that they love in their life is not around. Maybe there's a lack of relationships. I think we saw that a lot during COVID, right? It's like, hey, if you lived alone, you were really actually alone. And sometimes people isolate themselves because of trauma and they don't have relationships. So that's one, but then you're bringing up this other kind, right? This kind of loneliness where there's people around, but I don't feel connected to the people, or maybe worse than that, I feel very disconnected from the people. I feel scared internally of these connections, and maybe scared isn't a word that some people would use, but I feel turned off. I feel avoidant of these people. And so I'm lonely even though I'm with people.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I would even add to the first one that you brought up. There can be, we can feel alone, right, for a lot of different reasons, being actually alone, right, not married, all of these things that you brought up. In addition to that, there's also this idea of grief that comes up that
Oh,
brings up loneliness, right? It could even be as simple as uh, time has just gone on, family structure has changed, kids have moved out of the house, and the holidays look a lot different. And so we're longing for what we used to have. And it just doesn't look the same anymore. This can come from, separation, divorce,
mhm.
literal loss of somebody in the family, friendship shifting, all sorts of things that change the holidays and create a sense of loneliness. But then we also have, and this is, I think, where Monica, people often feel like they shouldn't feel lonely. There's something wrong with them. They're supposed to be happy, is when I have my family around me, but maybe I don't feel connected. Faces don't seem to be glad to be with me, right? I could be in a crowded room, going to the holiday parties, spending time with the people that are supposed to be the closest, but I don't necessarily feel safe. I don't feel like they're my people, and therefore I don't feel connected, right?
Right. So whether, in this episode we're talking to a therapist who is seeing clients who experience this, or experience some of this themselves, or, we're anybody else who wants to listen to this, this is a problem. It's a problem. Holidays are wonderful. There's so many people that are so excited and enjoying and prepping, and it's wonderful in so many ways. But for a lot of people, it's not wonderful. It's not
Totally.
fun. I mean, I've been talking to clients this week. I don't know if you have, but whether it's an empty nester mother whose children are choosing to go elsewhere for
Yes.
Thanksgiving, or whether it's someone who just experienced the passing of a spouse, or has a tragedy of a child who's passed away. It's horrible. It's
Right.
like, it's like they're counting down the days of this till this day where they're going to be in an extreme amount of grief. And
Right.
so the loneliness is acute for these people. And the experience of anticipation of this day that's coming isn't exciting. It's not exciting for them.
Right.
And so we as therapists need to be able to figure out how to show up for our clients and for ourselves and our colleagues as we prepare for these big days.
That's right. Well, and yeah, you bring up a great point that I think because of how painful loneliness can feel, but there is so much anticipation within the season, or you jump on social media and it's this comparison, right? Everyone looks so happy and glad to
Mhm.
be together, and we're decorating, and it can bring us to this place. And what I found, Monica, honestly, is that no matter what category you fall into, for the reasons that loneliness is coming up, most people feel like they're the only ones. Like there's something maybe wrong with them that they feel this way. They don't feel like they can often talk about it, or maybe they don't want to talk about it because they feel like, I'm just going to burden people.
Mhm.
But what I hear so often from people is that they'll say, I feel like people have forgotten what it's like to be in this phase of life, right? Or how hard it is to be single, how hard it is to be an empty nester, what it's like to go through the holidays when you've lost somebody. Everybody, when they get into whatever place that causes loneliness, they feel even more alone in it and don't feel like they can talk about it. And I think that when we get into these spaces where we're keeping all of this loneliness to ourselves, we're not talking about it, and maybe we're just putting on the smile and we're going along with things,
Yeah.
or we're isolating, we're pulling back from people and just kind of keeping to ourselves. I actually think that it amplifies the pain that we're in. And on top of that, can then lead us to places of shame.
Totally agree, Alyssa. I think from a life model perspective, our relational circuits shut off, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't feel attached to others, which as humans, we're created for this belonging and
That's
connection.
exactly right.
And there's these cultural expectations that the most intense time of connection is going to be in this holiday. On
Yeah,
this day is the day that we're going to connect, you know?
right,
And on this day, we're going to be joyful and we're going to be with family and we're going to be grateful and we're going to have this big gathering with toys and fun and gifts and food.
right.
And, what happens when families don't have enough money to provide all these things? I have some
Yes,
good friends. They run an organization called Hope Match, some of my best friends, and it is an organization that is for the working poor because a lot of times
mm,
we're giving to um, people who are in abject poverty, right?
right.
Which is
Mhm.
amazing and appropriate. But then there's also this population of they just can't make ends meet. They're just paying their rent. They're just paying their bills. What are they going to do for Christmas? And so Hope Match gets donors and we give all the gifts on these people's Christmas list. It's wonderful. So if we have anybody from the Charlotte area who is looking for something like that, this is a wonderful opportunity. But it's like, what happens to these people? I mean, how lonely would you feel if you were a parent who could not give your kids anything for Christmas?
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, what a painful place to begin because everything in you wants to create this really joyful environment for them, right? And to be so limited. And I think again, that's another great example of why people stay quiet. It brings up a sense of shame. They don't want to be a burden to people. They don't want to have to ask for help. They don't want to bring down the mood. Everyone else is so joyful. I don't want to be, the
Right.
Eeyore of the situation and bring people down.
So people suffer in silence, is what you're
That's
saying.
ex-
It's like,
that's
I don't
exactly
want to,
right.
yeah, I'm suffering. And we know from a life model lens, trauma is being alone and in pain, where
Yeah.
suffering well is I'm in pain, but I'm not alone. And I think that's what we want to do for our clients as therapists. When they come to our session and they're feeling these things and they're expressing these things, we want them to feel like we are actually with them.
Yes.
And we want to actually be with them, not feel like we're with them. We want them to sense, like Siegel says, to feel felt, right?
Yes, absolutely. That we are really truly glad to be with them, even in their pain, in their loneliness, because the reality is loneliness is not some determination of failure. It actually is evidence that we are wired to be together. We need connection. And so when we're feeling these low emotions of loneliness, it just means that our joy is really low and that we really long for connection. And that's a good thing to long for. It's hard to be in it, but that's a good thing to long for. And so we as therapists can create joy in our office just by being glad to be with these people,
Yes.
genuinely.
What I notice about that, Alyssa, is that I can, if I'm not careful, fake it. You know,
Mm,
Hi, how are you doing? Good to see you. Like act like I care. And I think Wilder said something like that. The worst thing that happens to us as therapists is we end up becoming a pseudo self in the session rather than actually
mhm.
feeling glad to be with someone. And really that's the most important thing. I remember one of the Joy Streams teachings, a therapist from the original group that created the life model said, I was working with somebody and I didn't quite feel like I was the person that was the best fit for this client. And the rest of the group, rest of her colleagues says, no, you are, because you have joy with this person. Your eyes light up when you see them. This is somebody that even in their trauma and their pain, they feel like they matter, that you're glad to be with them. And it's like we don't learn that in school, right? We think, oh, I mean, and I'm saying we do have to be educated and have some experience in what the client's dealing with. I'm not saying that that's not important, but what I'm saying is that even more important than our knowledge is our ability to be Jesus to people, to actually enjoy them, to actually share pain, as the life model says, with them, empathize, help them to feel like they're really not alone, that we actually do care.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because our brains know, right, Monica? If I'm in pain, and well, even if I'm not in pain, if I'm with somebody, my brain knows whether they're actually glad to be with me or not. We pick up on it. You
Yeah.
can't fake it. And
Yeah.
so part of what I hear you saying as part of our work as therapists is to be glad to be with our clients. And I agree. I don't think that this was emphasized enough in school. We learn a lot of great tools and ways to work with people. And the reality is that people in their pain, the only way that we navigate through this is when someone is glad to be with us in our pain. It's a starting point to help move us through it. And we are that place for people, right? We are the place where people can come and we can be glad to be with them. I can't tell you the amount of clients that we've, sat through a hard session. And at the end, I genuinely say to them, I am so glad to be with you today.
Mm-hmm.
And they look shocked. Like, really?
Mm-hmm.
And everything I just brought up, like, you're glad to be with me? And I'm like, yes. I'm so glad that we got to walk through that together. It's powerful. I'll say intervention. It's a powerful intervention, but it's just a powerful way to be with people and help them.
Yeah, it's a powerful way of like joining, right, with a
Yes.
client. And I'm, as you're talking, I'm thinking about asking you this question. Have you ever had a client say to you, oh yes, but I pay you, right? I mean, I have had so many clients say that, when I'm glad to be with them and they say, well, yeah, but I pay you.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, say, call them on the carpet about it. I say, okay, yeah, but do you think I'm faking it? I mean, can you sense that I really do enjoy you and that I really am glad to be with you? So, it's my job. This is my job. Yes, I went to school for it because I feel I'm called to this. But really, I truly want to be with you. That is part of my process is becoming the kind of person who can join you and show up for you in this way.
That's right.
So I know, so good, right? So
Yep.
I think for us as clinicians, we're number one, we're needing to be glad to be with the client, but we're also wanting to help the client build some of this on their own outside of session, correct? And then
Absolutely.
yes, yes, yes. And so I'll oftentimes have clients kind of list the people that they do feel connected to. Um, Even if like I have some groups in my practice where we do life model identity together, and the ladies and the gents, they feel so connected to each other. So I'm like, hey, if you don't feel connected to anybody else, you've got these people, and the idea is, um, they could also reach out to me, whether that's through, text or email, through our portal. I tell them, blow me up. Like I'll respond when I can, but I want you to know you've got some place to tell these things and to get these things across, right? And so we really need people to have people. And so I think that's part of our growth experience that we want to have with clients is helping them develop a joyful group around them
Yeah.
somehow,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's just one or two or whatever, but that they have these opportunities to grow joyful connection.
Yeah, and I think some of this, Monica, can even, because you're right, it has to extend outside of our office. We're a starting point, but joy has to be cultivated beyond just us. And so I think some of this can be done just by like these little micro joy moments, having them look for joy. Because ultimately, when we're in pain, when we have shame coming up, and our relational circuits are offline, it can be hard to want to connect with people, but that's ultimately what our brain needs. And so, even starting in our office with appreciation and building some joy together, and then encouraging them to go out with, even if it's one person that you feel somewhat connected to, start building some appreciation, some little joy moments, little check-ins with people that you know, because it doesn't have to be that the holidays look exactly how you would really love them to look. You can be building this all season long, right? I think in addition to that, sometimes we also need to tap into quieting. I think going back to what you had said earlier in the podcast, I don't think that although loneliness is really painful, it can be a way that we can actually get really quiet and we can tune into Jesus. And Jesus does so much for us, right? When we get into those really quiet spaces that do feel lonely, where we're not surrounded by people, sometimes these are the sweetest moments with Him, where He just really meets us in that space, joins with us, attunes to us. And we can build some like really great depth in our relationship with Him through that.
You know, what comes up for me, Alyssa, when you say that is how the life model says that quieting is the birthplace of bonding. And
Mm,
also this concept of we have to quiet the body to quiet the soul. So even before we have joy, we need to quiet. Like
mhm.
that is the foundational sense of being able to receive. And so I love that idea. And Life Model has a ton of information about quieting. And we, as Life Model Informed Therapy, have a lot in our training modules about how therapists can help clients as
Yeah,
well as themselves quiet. But the
yeah,
point is, if we quiet our bodies, we can quiet our souls. If we quiet our souls, we can find more peace.
yeah.
And if we can find more peace, we can find more joy in those
Mhm.
attachments with others. But a lot of times, I think clients are coming in to us with attachment pain in relationships instead of the other way around, right? Because and so a lot of times people are feeling like no one wants to be with me, I'm an outsider, I don't fit. There's some kind of like attachment insecurity that's going on a lot of times, and I think as therapists we're wanting to help heal that attachment pain, help people live from their true identity so that they can show up in a way that actually produces a bond, a secure attachment with others, rather than putting their hand out and rejecting that attachment.
Yeah.
And so I think so many times clients are looking for others to do that for them. And frankly, as a therapist as well, right? Like I need somebody else to reach out to me, or nobody is, asking me to do anything. Nobody is inviting me over for Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas. And so there's a sense of not putting themselves out there because of that insecurity and because they're maybe not living from that joyful place themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Which is hard to do because ultimately, again, your relational circuits are off. And this is where we lack the ability to think outside of the box, problem solve, think of, even in my pain, what is it like me to do? I think when we're able to quiet, like you said, build some joy in those moments, we can get those relational circuits warming up. And then we start acting like ourselves. So, what is it like me to do when I feel lonely? Do I sit around and wait for an invitation?
Mhm.
Or do I take charge? Do I do something, right, that is going to build some joy? I think just like you brought up earlier, these organizations where it's like we can give back, that's a great way to build joy, right? Even if you are in a place of loneliness, is creating and cultivating joy with others. But I think a lot of it takes getting to a place of I can get my relational circuits back online so I can start acting more like myself and figure out what do I want to make of this season, even when I feel lonely. So, one of the things I do like to do, thinking about the identity piece, because you brought up earlier when clients said, but are like, I pay you, right? The follow up question I love to that is when clients say, and I'm like, no, I genuinely do love being with you. They'll ask me why. And I love getting to answer that question because I feel like it's an opportunity to speak identity over them
Mhm.
and share with them why they are a joy to be with
Oh, I
when
like
when they're in a great place or when they're in a painful place, but just to speak identity over them. And I think obviously when we're in pain, it's hard to tap into our identity. So having somebody speak that over to you, I think can be really powerful.
Yes, and I can identify with that experience. I've had clients say, "But you probably say that to everyone," and I'm no. I mean, I think that's this wonderful thing about the life model and this identity teaching is that we have these unique characteristics, which do
Mhm.
take on the character of Christ, right? The aroma of Christ in the world. What's your specific and unique aroma
That's
of
right.
Christ that you bring to the world? And so that gets me excited. So I love this conversation, Alyssa. It's so good to be able to feel like we can do something about this loneliness epidemic that we encounter with clients during the holiday season. I think our goal as therapists is to bring a warmth and hope and attunement to our clients, helping them understand loneliness around the holidays is common. It's human. It's not something to be ashamed about, but it's like Carl Lehman says, don't waste a trigger, right? It's a trigger. So let's talk about it. Let's help you heal.
That's right. Grow capacity, right? Yeah, I love that. Don't waste a trigger. Loneliness is not shameful. It's something that needs to get talked about. Um, the brain is asking for connection, for joy, attunement. And as helpers, we get the opportunity to lean into that with people and help them grow capacity and hopefully have a different experience around the holidays than they maybe have before. And I think that makes a huge difference. So this has been so fun talking to you about this. For all of you listening, I hope this podcast has helped you to build a joyful practice over the next couple months throughout this season, because at CFT, we know that healing spreads when counselors live in joy. So thank you for joining us. We're so glad to be with you.